about. Trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist. Am I worth anything or just a scout? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Happy New Year. That was the great sounds of Watts with Outside on WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Prestige, with my partner in crime, Long Island raised, Elm City made, E.Z. Bluez is in the building. Easy Bluez, you are better with introductions more than me. Who do we have with us today on Behind the Brand? Go ahead, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, first, let me just say Happy New Year. I hope you enjoyed all of the holidays, not just one, not just several, all of them. I hope you enjoyed them, and Happy New Year. Second of all, let's talk about stories. Let's talk about stories. What makes a story interesting is when you have someone being able to talk about it. And this next person is able to give you the information necessary that fills in that heart aspect of life, that lets us know who our neighbors are, what our neighbors are doing, and how awesome you truly are in as a city. There has been several pieces that I have read from this person that have truly made me understand the beauty of New Haven. And for that, I want to give them flowers right now. Thank you so much for that. Absolutely incredible. So much so has highlighted my little children without really knowing that they were there. And I know they're not so little anymore. We're not going to talk about that. I'm getting old. Let's move forward. But I want you to put your hands together. Not if you're driving. If you're driving, please keep your hands at 10 and 2. We don't need any accidents. But mentally, put your hands together. The absolutely amazing, for the incredible, for the person who is, at some points, the voice of the voiceless. Lucy Gellman, how are you?
Hello, I'm great. How are y'all? It's Monday. I did not sleep enough last night, but that's okay.
Oh, Lord.
It's the new year. It's it's good. And I'm in the city I love. I'm in my home of New Haven. So I'm good. I'm so happy to be talking to you beautiful people.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It means a lot coming from you. It's been a long time, Lucy. And just to kick things off with the show, for media, did everything happen by accident, or was this always your passion?
Oh, that's a great question. No, it was not always my passion, although okay. I'm really lucky to live in a house. I grew up in Detroit, and both of my parents, but especially my mom, have always let me read whatever I want. So it was a house where we were encouraged to read the news, but also if there was a book that maybe was like too old for me or something like that, my mom was like, okay, well, that doesn't matter. Go read it. If you're interested in it, go read it. And so they were always very supportive. But my first passion was, it's funny because now I'm an arts reporter, was art history. And I loved art history. Oh, wow. I was a huge dork. I still am a huge dork. I wear that title really proudly. And I remember going on a field trip in a museum when I was in high school. I think I was like a sophomore. And we went around this exhibition of Camille Claudel's work. So she was this French woman, lived in the 19th century. She was a lover of Auguste Rodin. A lot of people know his work. Fewer people know her work. And many, many things happened to her, including she had a miscarriage. A lot of her work was misattributed to Rodin. And she ultimately ended up spending a lot of her life in an institution for folks who were mentally unwell. And I learned this story and I was like, well, first of all, why haven't I learned this story before? The answer, spoiler alert, is because she's a lady. And then also I was like, I love this art and I'm so moved by it. And so I studied art history in undergrad, then I got a graduate degree in art history. And at the same time, I had moved to New Haven right after grad school to work for the Yale Art Gallery. And I had started freelancing for the New Haven Independent, woo woo, cheers for Paul Bass, at that time, because Alan Appel, who's a reporter for the Independent, was married to someone I worked with at the art gallery, who said like, yo, you should check this out. You're always talking about the cool stuff you do on the weekends. You like to write, maybe write that down. So I started there and then actually was going to go back to school to get a PhD in art history because I loved it that much. And Paul, bless him, took me out for, I think it was tea, and said, like, listen, you don't want to do this. I can see it written all over your face. Like, you might love this thing, but you don't want to be in school for 7 years. You don't
Right.
actually want to go get this PhD. I'm building a radio station. Help me build it. And I was like, okay. And I'm so happy. I mean, I tell people Paul saved my life, and
Yeah.
there have been many people who have saved my life,
Mhm.
literally and figuratively, but I really do believe that he is one of them, because I don't think I would have been happy if I'd gone back to school. And that this is going to sound really funny. Some of my best friends are in PhD programs. So if that's what you love, if that's your passion, I think you should pursue it.
Absolutely.
But reporting now is, I don't want to do anything else with my life. It's the best job in the world.
So many personalities you get to meet too. Different heads,
Yes.
different bodies, so many stories that you can never believe that will happen in your life, for the past and your future.
Yeah.
that you get to interact with. It's crazy.
And you learn, I mean, we'll talk about it. I'm sure you learn so much about people. I think my world, when I was in museums, and I still love museums, I still go to museums,
Of course.
but when I was in museums, my world was really small, like really, really small.
Mhm.
And what you learn as a reporter, and I'm sure that y'all feel this way hosting this show,
Mhm.
is there's no right way, right, to like live a life or have a career, and the term success is completely arbitrary.
Yeah.
And the way people live their lives is so interesting, like, and the way they follow their passions, or the way their lives have been put on hold, and maybe they can't follow their passions until they're older. Like, humans are so interesting.
We are.
Yeah.
We are. We're a crazy bunch. But you talked about museums. What has been, New Haven has so much history and so much art and incredible culture within the Elm
Yes.
City. What have been some of your favorite museums just to visit? Is it Peabody? Is the Yale
Oh.
Art Gallery? Because you're such an art nerd. Just like, let me just get inside your brain real quick.
I'm a nerd. So I have a little bit of Yale University Art Gallery PTSD. I don't think any
Okay.
of my former employers are going to be surprised hearing that. So I still go, but I don't go that often, and I don't go on days when I think that former colleagues are going to be in the building. But I want to shout out actually Kriko Obat. He
Okay.
is this incredible artist in New Haven. He has a museum called the Hill Museum of Arts, and it's
Wow.
dedicated specifically to his art. So he has these huge, like, I can't even with my hands show how big they are, because they're 2-story pencil drawings
Wow.
of different cities. So he has
Wow.
for interesting, yeah, he's an incredible artist. Harry, if you're listening, and if you could like Google him and maybe throw something up on the screen. So if folks have taken trains in and out of Union Station,
Mhm.
you've probably seen his
Mhm.
rendering of New Haven. It's a pencil drawing. I mean, that's a
Mhm.
copy. So he's super amazing.
Yeah.
I like Next Haven. I know people feel some kind of way about Next Haven, but they have had some really interesting exhibitions, and especially their student exhibitions. So they have a really cool student apprenticeship program. So for
Right.
folks who don't know, Next Haven is on Henry Street. So the
Mm-hmm.
first museum I mentioned, the Hill Museum of Arts, it's on West Street. So like right by the boxing gym that's on Congress Avenue.
Yes.
If you turn on West,
Mhm.
like if you're going up Congress toward West Haven and you take a right on West Street, you're right there, and you can't miss it. It's like this funky building with columns outside, and it looks kind of like a mashup of like 1970s architecture, and then someone shoved something Greco-Roman into it. It's very cool. And the Next Haven is on Henry Street, and they've done some really cool work with students at Co-op, with students at Hill House High School, and anything that engages the young people in our city makes me really excited. And then I know this might sound corny, but student art shows, like, don't sleep on student art. So
Mhm.
so those make me really happy, and trying to think, like, there are good free institutions around New Haven. So I think it's a great place. I loved it when the Peabody, which I think is still currently closed to the public, had the show on ancient Mesopotamia. That was like really cool because it's just very cool to think about the fact that there were people so long before you and there will be people so long after you too.
So true.
Yeah, that was a very rambling. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Me and Easy, I've been doing this for quite some time. We love the rambling. There's a lot of things we can get out the rambling. But Easy, I saw you squinting, and that means that there's a light bulb above your head. Go right ahead and tell Lucy what you have to say.
Well, no, one for those who don't know, you cannot miss that boxing gym. It has this incredible artwork on the side of it. You know you're there when you're there, and for those all those who know understand. I used to go. My doctor used to be right by there. It's been fantastic. But you know, it's absolutely incredible when you can sit back and understand and process living in a city like this. You know, coming from a place that was a lot more suburban aspect, being also a transplant out here, it was a different type of life. You know, you're naming off, you know, and taking us on an incredible tour of some of the best local art museums when the majority of people out there that are say you're sitting and watching this in Ohio right now and not like Columbus, you might not have 17 different museums that you could attend, but just go to your public library and you know, let your imagination take you on that tour. I think it is amazing to do. But this is how incredible you are as a journalist. This is what you do now, is you don't just talk about, you know, the art itself, you talk about the personal connection to the city and to the person. Was that something that you always were driving through, being like an art history major to begin with? Or that's something that evolved in your journalistic style?
Yes, and also no. So it's, I mean,
I love
it's
those
interesting
answers.
because art history is, it's super academic, it's super insular, it's super white. It's pretty female until you get to the top, and then like almost every other field, you have white men who are dominating it and making more money. Which is also probably one of the reasons Paul saw in me that I did not like actually want to go on to a PhD program. But I love people. I've always really loved people. My mom tells this story of me when I was like 2.5 years old, just walking up to someone in like pre-K. I went to Montessori. I'm like super crunchy in that way. And walking up to someone and just saying like, "Hi, I'm Lucy. Do you want to be my friend?" And that's kind of like how I live. I say I'm an extroverted introvert. Everyone disagrees with me about that. But I will say my job is really social, and sometimes I go home and I just want to like hide under my bed. But I love people and I love the stories of people. And I think that when I found out there was a job you could do where you talk to people and then you got to write about it, which I also really love doing, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, shut the front door. I get to do this for a living and someone's going to pay me. Not a lot. Don't, like, kids, don't go into journalism if you want to make a lot of money, but it's such a cool job because I get to talk to different people every day. Even before this interview, I was with kids at Co-op High School, which is a place that's just really, really near and dear to my heart. And there's a new teacher there in the like ceramics and art classroom. And so I was just talking to kids all morning, and it was, they're not kids, they're young adults. And it was the best. Like everyone's story is so interesting and everyone's story deserves to be told.
What have been some of your favorite stories? I know there's so many. There
are so many. I'm trying to think. Okay.
The standouts. Maybe not your favorite, but your standouts.
I hope this doesn't sound really grim.
Okay.
But I really love writing obituaries, actually, because you get to talk to people about why they loved someone.
Okay.
And some of them are hard for me. Like last year, the city librarian John Jessen passed away, and in some ways, like I'm a hyper compartmentalizer, and so it was like, okay, this person who I also really respected as a city official, who I loved talking to, who I would have like the best off the record conversations with, this person has passed away, and I need to like I need to write this thing and I need to do it in like 48 to 72 hours. And so that's what I'm going to be focused on. And so when you get to pay homage to someone, you know, and I'm not the only person, like shout out Brian Slattery and who's the arts editor for the New Haven Independent and has done some really beautiful obituaries. But to be in space where people are being remembered and to have trust, to have enough trust with a person who like tells you stories about this person's life and the difference they made. I'm constantly reminded of the difference that one person, this sounds so cheesy, I'm really sorry, but the difference that one person can make in the world. So I think obits, and then I really enjoy like storytelling, where I really get to do storytelling in my writing. So if something's like a long profile where you find out something really interesting that maybe you otherwise wouldn't have known about a person. I love writing profiles of artists, especially because in New Haven, because real estate is crazy expensive, a lot of artists work in their homes. And so to have artists who open the door and say, come into my home, you know, for instance, Candace John, who goes by Marsh.
Yes, I'm real familiar with her.
Yeah,
we had her on. Yeah,
she's like crazy talented and works in her home. And I remember it was like, I think I interviewed her in August of like a year and a half ago or a year ago. And she was like, yeah, but to get into the studio, you have to go up the rickety fire escape. And I was like, am I going to die going up this fire?
Yeah.
And the answer was no, because I am not. If people know me, they know I'm a very clumsy person. Like I'm not gifted with like moving through space.
right.
But to be in intimate spaces and to have someone say like, I trust you enough. So those stories, and then every time I get to meet new people, I mean, I there are people I love returning to and telling the continual stories of. Like I love going to the board meetings for the Freddie Fixer Parade Committee, which sometimes have 25 people and sometimes have 5 people. And I love Diane Brown knows that if she tells me to show up, I'm going to show up. So for those who don't know, Diane Brown is the branch manager at Stetson Library on Dixwell Avenue. And
and Harry knows I got to say WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven, myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime, Long Island Rays, Elm City made EZ Bluez is in the building. Lucy, go ahead. I hope I didn't lose your train of thought.
No, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
And then I love getting to meet new people. So last year, and this is often how things work for reporters. I think a lot of reporters can identify with this. It's usually just like an email. Sometimes it's an Instagram message or a Facebook message out of the blue. And someone says, hey, my name is, you know, blank. We have this really cool group and we want you to know about it. And so last year I met Arden Santana in that way. And if you know Arden, she's 1/3 of the elements of abundance.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and she's amazing. And she is like this fierce advocate for education. She's just wonderful. And she sent me an email saying like, hey, we have a couple events coming up. We'd be really interested in getting coverage if you're around. I'm usually around because I live here. And getting to meet her and her daughters and also the people she is in community with. And also knowing that she, like, I am a middle-class white lady reporting in a city that is mostly Black and brown. And so knowing that also there was the trust there to say, okay, I trust that she's not going to mess this story up. I trust that she's not going to get this story wrong. I have found, as someone who didn't grow up in New Haven, I grew up in Detroit, and I found that there's a lot of trust building that needs to take place before I go into a space. And that's something that I actually really love. I used to, when I probably started reporting like 9 years ago, and I was at the Indian in my 20s, I think I was really put off by it. I was like, oh, why did these people not trust me? Like, of course they should trust me. I'm a really nice person, and which I am. But now I'm like, oh no, that mistrust is so earned, because especially in a city like New Haven, so many folks come, they extract what they want from the city. They often come in association with Yale, not always. and then use it as their stepping stone, and they're here for maybe 2 to 4 years, and then they're like, okay, I've gotten what I need from New Haven, I'm gonna peace out.
Right.
And I think that it's like very reasonable for people to be like, hey, I want to vet you, I want to know that you're in this because you love the city as much as I do.
Oh, okay. Detroit pizza or New Haven pizza?
Oh, New Haven pizza. Detroit pizza is terrible. I love Detroit. I was just in Detroit. I love my parents. I love my aunts who are still in Detroit. Yeah, Detroit pizza is not where it's at.
I had to ask.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I mean, if you want a square pie with some funky
Right.
cheese, go for it.
I definitely had to ask. I'm sorry. It just came to mind. But I know you started just about the founding bricks of 103.5 FM. How hard was it, just a little bit mentally, just to start a station from scratch?
Really hard.
Especially a community station. Yeah, please tell me about that.
I mean, I still give Paul a lot of credit, and shout out Harry Droz, who is the station
Absolutely.
manager currently.
Definitely,
And
absolutely, he does a great job.
I think is doing more with it now, especially on the technology side, than I could have envisioned. So, like, Harry, thank you for taking the radio station to a place that I couldn't. And also shout out to Brian Slattery, who is really good at technology. Some people don't know that. He's just a very talented guy. So in addition to writing, he is a musician, and then he like knows how to make mics work and stuff like that. So I had a lot of help, especially at the beginning. And I also give Paul a lot of credit, because I was like YouTubing stuff and Googling stuff, and like I don't know what this is. I don't know. I mean, I didn't know that you had to do a station ID. I know more about the FCC now than I ever thought I would.
Yeah.
And like music and ASCAP and BMI and all of this stuff work when you're coming out with a master's degree in art history, which is super fun and equally useless degree. Like, yeah, so it was very hard. And I think in the same way that New Haven is like this magical, beautiful, and also complicated little city, the WNHH community rallied around that. And there was this real, and I think still is, this real understanding that like, hey, it's community radio. So I remember on a day that a photographer from the New York Times, because there was like Brett Sokol, who's this journalist, had a story that included WNHH. So a photographer came from the New York Times, and our internet was down. And somehow I like MacGyvered it to talk to my home internet, which wasn't that far away because I was just living on Trumbull Street, which is not that many blocks away at the time. And I was like on the floor. I remember being on the floor during what used to be Friday Pundits. So like Joe Ugly, Babs Rawls-Ivy, Markeisha Ricks, and Paul Bass would sort of like cram into the studio, which is about the size of a closet. And they would have these really heated political discussions. And I think I was like on the floor in a shirt dress, probably like flashing someone unintentionally, just like trying to make the internet work and making it work. And that's community radio, right? So it was really hard and also like really joyful, and I would do it again.
But now you're with the Art Council, am I correct?
I am. So about 5.5 years ago, I transitioned from, I was at WNHH, and then I reported for a little while with the Independent, and then went to the Arts Council of Greater New Haven, where I run the arts paper.
How's that working out?
It's great. I mean, for any of our board members listening, I really would like a second full-time reporter, because there's only so much.
I think that'd be very, very on point.
I mean, I often wish, like, if either of you have figured this out, I often wish I could like split myself, and just be in multiple places at once, because
It's the same thing for me too.
In a testament to New Haven, like we're a small city. We're 18.7 square miles, or I think now it's like 19.2. It's 135,000 people. So that's a dense small city, right? But we punch way above our weight culturally.
Absolutely.
And so on any given weekend, even at the beginning of the year, January, people are like, oh, it's the quiet time. And it is way quieter than like June or December. But even in January, there are like 5 things you can do probably within like a 2-mile radius on any given Saturday. And I'm guessing 4 out of 5, if not 5 out of 5, are free. So it's an amazing city. And for that reason, I mean, the work at the arts paper really keeps me on my toes, but I love it. And about 4.5 years ago, I co-founded this thing called the Youth Arts Journalism Initiative with a colleague who is actually now finishing a PhD in art history, Stephen Yurchik. So
Okay.
shout out to Stephen. But now I run it with Markeisha Ricks, who is a former journalist at the New Haven Independent. And it's just so much fun. We teach high schoolers journalism by doing journalism. It's really, really fun. It's also really, really hard because high school is a lot. It was a lot even before the pandemic. Like you couldn't pay me to go back there. And it's even more now, but these students are amazing. Like this goes back to my belief that just like people are incredible. Yes. And I love that when they come on board, there are eyes and ears into the schools a lot of the time. So yeah, so it's that was rambly too, but it's a great job.
Once again, I love rambling. Myself and Easy, we live for story time. So anytime we get story time, just learn about somebody, it's a great feeling. You talked about the pandemic just a little bit, and I always like to ask, every time we have a guest, just mention it, just their thoughts, and because it's always positive when they talk about the pandemic, because there's a lot of great things that they saw out of it. Mind you, it was a tragic time because what was going on with the disease and everything, but a lot of people saw, they flipped it around and they put it into a 180. So as a reporter, as someone who is interested in the arts, how was the pandemic just through your eyes?
Wow. Well, I feel like I've seen the best of humanity and also the worst of humanity a little bit. So I think in the arts, like artists did what they've always had to do, which is hustle and innovate on budgets that were stretched even before the pandemic. So there were a lot of artists who said like, okay, I don't really have money. No one's been paying me for my craft, or if they have, they've been paying me like a nominal fee that is not what they're worth, right? So I'm going to make things work. And there were incredible performances. So the front person to Fat Astronaut, and I don't know if Fat Astronaut still exists, but gave this incredible concert the first week, or maybe it was the second week it was very, very early. So, it was like what happened. And I always think about the fact that it was Friday the 13th too, when everything shut down. Like, I don't think that was a coincidence. My grandmother, who actually died that month.
That was wild. Like, oh my goodness.
She was super trick-or-treat. Oh, I mean,
yeah.
It like we knew it was coming. It wasn't COVID related, but she was very trichodeca-phobic. And for that reason, I was like, there is something like Friday the 13th, like there's something bigger going on, right? And an entirely man-made pandemic. But I think artists, like, they innovated because that's what they do. And the number of people who have told me, well, I don't think we should pay artists that much in relief funding. And this has been an ongoing discussion because, of course, now the city is still figuring out what to do with their CARES Act funding. Before that, it was PPP and an emergency relief funding. My question back to them would be, okay, so what would you be doing without your books and without your Netflix and without Spotify and without Bandcamp? And of course, the answer is they'd be a lot more depressed than. So, I mean, I think also, like, I love the number of outdoor things that came out of COVID. And I hope that is an innovation that, unless it's 20 degrees, I mean, I will come cover your event if it's 20 degrees. People can attest to the fact that, like, I have been at their marches when it has been really, really cold and my knuckles are frozen by the end of the march.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And I think some of the coolest things happened in like small groups. So I think Halloween 2020, Elm Shakespeare did an
Mhm.
outdoor fully masked performance with their teenage performers, because there was still all sorts of stuff with like acting unions where they were like,
Mhm.
we can't have people travel because it's pre-vaccine, but their teenage performers live here, right? And they still
Yeah.
wanted to make theater. So
Mhm.
they put it in Edgewood Park or Edgerton Park, which is this big, beautiful, sprawling park,
Mhm.
and had students socially distance and act out Shakespeare. And they were like screaming through their masks, and no one was mic'd. I mean, it was a very like low budget production, right? And it
Right.
was magical. It was like, it was really cold. It was right before Halloween, so it felt like extremely spooky. The performances were at like 8 and 10 at night, so it was completely pitch dark.
Mhm.
And it was great. It was amazing. And I feel like there have been a couple things like that where people have said, okay, well, I guess we'll have to perform in our parking lot, or Music Haven took it to the park. And also shout out to so Sarah Miller, Kika Matos, and there are some other like Karen Dubois, Walton, some other
Mhm.
collaborators who in Fairhaven, in response to violence in 2021, they said there's a lot of violence happening around a specific eating and drinking establishment. So what we're going to do is we're going to
Mhm.
occupy the space. And how we're going to occupy the space is we're just going to ask artists to show up. And artists, to their credit, showed up. They showed
Yes,
up
they did.
every night for over a month. And so you'd get like a string quartet and a bingo game. And there were
Mhm.
bomba circles. So if people don't know what bomba is, it's this beautiful um, Puerto Rican art form that comes out of the Afro-Caribbean slave trade, because over 400 years ago, West Africans in Puerto Rico needed some way to communicate about liberation and resistance and revolt that was not specifically, that did not look violent um, to the people who
Mhm.
were in power. And so they chose this art form. And if you think about capoeira in Brazil, which is a product of the Afro-Brazilian both slave trade and slavery, that's very similar. Anyway, so like all of these things filled this parking lot for over a month, and it was just totally incredible. Band teachers brought their band students. It
Yeah.
was just like amazing. And so I think that and then even thinking about that, like why was it there? It was there because of the surge in violence that the city was seeing. And so I think
Mhm.
we also have to acknowledge that this is a time of like incredible pain and incredible trauma for a lot of people in the city. And
Yes.
we're still in this, like the pandemic is, it's still
Still
with
here.
us.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard.
Oh, it definitely is hard. Easy. The light bulb is above. Let me hear you.
Well, no, it's the whole thing. It's such a beautiful story, but it's also it comes from that point of pain.
Yeah.
You know, I say all the time, even in therapy. You know, even in therapy, I say it all the time that
I love you, Harry.
it's that the one upside of trauma is how you can be artistic.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
and I never want to lose that, even though I'm working through the different steps to, you know, take away the sting of the trauma. I want to be able to hold on to the creativity of it. And I think it's something that's been absolutely beautiful the entire time. Um, Now, as you continue to move forward, you know, you do a lot of work like with the schools, with the kids and different stuff like that. Has that been some of your favorite things, like seeing creativity through the spectrum of some, you know, the youth?
Oh yeah. Schools were actually, I should have said this, Preston, when you asked earlier, like
Mhm.
schools reporting is some of my favorite reporting. And first of all, students are sometimes difficult, but difficult to talk to. I don't mean difficult as people. I don't subscribe to that. I don't think, I was just talking to a teacher this morning. Like I was like, we're not going to use the word behind or backslide or difficult. Like I don't want that in this discussion, right?
Mhm.
But students are also hilarious. Like young people are hilariously funny. They their like imaginations are really expansive, and I love different ages for different reasons. I love talking to elementary schoolers because no one has told them, especially the girls in the classes, no one has told them no, or they can't yet. And so you often get people who are like, I'm going to be a unicorn when I grow up. And you're like, heck, yes, you are. Yeah. And you know, and then middle schoolers, like middle school is such a weird age. It's such a hard
I'm
age.
aware.
You know, right?
I know.
Because you're a dad. And it's, but also talking to middle schoolers, and like they are going through it. As you know, and I feel like kids are going through things earlier than I did, but maybe that's because I blocked everything out and like hid my diaries, and I don't know. And then high schoolers, like some of them are real quiet and they keep to themselves, and some of them will just tell you like it is. So like today I had a whole conversation with a young woman in a ceramics class about how much she loves to smash stuff. And I was like, girl, me too. Yes, I hear you. Like, let's talk about that. Let's talk about rage. And so I think, like, you know, I love schools reporting, and shout out to New Haven Public Schools teachers, because I feel like I've said it on the radio before, so I can say this safely without anyone yelling at me. Like, we know that we're in a literacy crisis and a math crisis that in part is because there are people on our Board of Education in New Haven who were not willing to adopt a different pedagogy. And we also know that there are people who recognize that there's a problem, but have just said like, well, we can't. And I don't believe that's ever the answer. And so I know that there are really transformative teachers. I see the work they're doing every day. So just shout out to them. So many of them are amazing. You know, I think of people like Nikki Claxton, who's at Betsy Ross Arts Magnet. And I know that both of you had Tavares Bussey on the show. He like, what an incredible educator and an incredible artist. He's a spoken word artist as well.
His books are great too.
Yes,
definitely, most definitely.
You know, we're really lucky in this city to have people who are like, they're definitely not doing it for the money, because our Board of Education does not pay teachers what it should. Right. So.
Oh, definitely agree.
I love that you brought up Terry Bussey, because, you know, and you also can attest for this as well. My kids start to understand that life's a little bit different, and they can't necessarily get away from anyone that dad doesn't know. You know, so like when Mr. Bussey became part of Betsy Ross, I was like, oh, you're about to have my kids. And like from day one, because they look like me, they act like me. I have clones more than I have children, so everyone knows, you know. And you know, he hits me up, he's like, they're doing great, it's fantastic, or, you know, hey, you might want to take a look. And they'll get home like, want to talk about something? Like, really, Dad? I wanted to just take my shoes off. Let me unpack my day before we get into this. I was like, hey man, people are gonna let me know. So let's move forward. And it's an incredible community experience, you know. And you know, when you cover the aspect for Betsy Ross, you know, Miles was like, saw your friend today. You know, it was cool. And just go about the day, and you were able to hit me up. And that's one of the beautiful things about New Haven, and what I love about it.
Definitely what I love about New Haven. Also, I love about New Haven is 103.5 FM, the station that we're on behind the brand, myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime, Long Island Raised, Elm City Made, Easy Bluez in the building. Easy, go right ahead. I hope you didn't lose your train of thought as you keep on dancing on behind the brand.
So, you know, as you continue to move forward and as you continue to explore, are there any parts of the arts that you have not been able to cover that you really want to cover? Because you are very well versed. We had a full education segment in that last 20 minutes that we're doing, but I feel like there's more to it that you really want to crack into. And I can tell you're super excited about that question. So I'm gonna let you go.
Yeah. We don't, and this is partly, so like, full honesty and transparency, because I've told our board this, so they have it in all my reports for the past 3 years. We don't have a second full-time reporter. It's me, and then some freelancers. Shout out to Danielle Campbell, especially, who is working her butt off, and she is an incredible writer and just like human being. And should be paid much more by the arts paper than she is for articles. But yeah, so part of the problem is bandwidth. And every day, I kid you not, it's doing this equation of not just like what story is most deserving to be told, which hurts. I mean, that feels like you're killing your darlings because the answer is all of them deserve to be told. But then also, what story are other outlets going to get to? So maybe I don't have to. So if I know, for instance, that Brian Slattery or Karen Ponzio is going to be covering a show, and there are 3 other things that night that no one is covering, I think about that. So your question was like, what am I jazzed about? I really want to be covering more music. New Haven has this incredible music scene. And I feel like I'm good at getting to music that is in venues that are maybe like unorthodox venues. So like an art museum or a library or definitely a school. I'm not as good at getting to venues like Cafe 9, Never Ending Books, the State House, Best Video. And first of all, I just have like incredible respect for the reporters at the Indie who have made that a priority in their reporting, and I'm really grateful for it. Part of it is, if either of y'all know like young people, because I'm in my 30s now, and it's like when I go to a show that starts at 9 p.m., I'm like, oh, my back, my knees, ooh, I'm getting old, my hips lock. It's just hard. It is hard on this little body. So that's part of it. But then I really do want to be covering more music. And then, New Haven, we have dance. But I love dance. I have a really soft spot for it. I'm very moved by it, especially when it's young people doing dance. Because I find it just like really moving how much someone can say with their body, but not with any words at all. So I think I would love to cover more dance. I think we've done a better job. We did a better job with that in the last year. But definitely music is a priority because New Haven has such an incredible music scene. Again, going back to this idea of like, if I just said to someone, okay, you've got a city that's 18.7 square miles and 135,000 people, how many gigs a night do you think happen in that city? The person would be like, I don't know, maybe there are a couple gigs a week. And the answer is we reliably have something. Like if you are bored in this city, you are doing New Haven wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
That's a fact. That's definitely a fact. I do agree on that. Wholeheartedly. There's so much going on every single day.
Yes.
But go right ahead. Go right ahead. I know you got more to say.
Oh yeah. So I was gonna say, getting to those venues. And so the article is not written yet, but I did cover a queer comedy night at Never Ending Books, which is this very cool collective on State Street. I have some stuff that I want to get to at Cafe 9. I'm really jazzed about the fact that the New Haven Jazz Underground is like coming into this year doing a lot of cool stuff. I have a feeling that Shane Penguin might have some shows on the horizon.
2 or 3 shows. This isn't about me. It's about you. Everybody else. Why does everyone want to talk about me when we got on the show? About you.
You got the hat on.
Yeah. So definitely music, and then actually, okay, this sounds really boring.
Right. You got a little froze.
Like hard. That's a great frozen shot, though. If I'm being honest.
No, it's a good still. It's a good still. It really is a good still.
It's the knowledge that is being dropped right now that we can't hear.
I mean, she is probably dropping a lot of bombs right now.
It's incredible.
A lot of truth and knowledge bombs right now. So much,
mental
wealth going on.
Full dissertation.
And then the internet just said no.
Then it's like, no, too much. You were giving too much knowledge,
and then Lucy just got frozen out of nowhere. It's crazy right now. Oh no! Oh, is she back? She's back. She's back. She's muted.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know what happened either.
You were giving out too much information for free, and the information god said no. They need to pay for it.
I actually sometimes I am like, is the NSA listening? Do they care that much about me? And the answer is no.
Right.
But I'm
don't sell yourself short. They care a little bit.
I also really love covering stuff like city budget and state budget. And so one of my plans is to cover more state legislative stuff that's happening this year and also in the city. So we always have a budget. And then this year, if folks don't know, is a mayoral election year. I think it's going to be really interesting to watch the different candidates and see what they have to say. I mean, I have joked a lot about running for mayor and having my sole issue be the library, because I love our public library and it is deeply underfunded. Yeah, so music and government.
I try not to stay too much into the political, standpoint when it comes to doing what I do.
Okay.
It's just me personally. But just being a reporter and doing this for a long amount of time, you've been to 2 terms. I mean, through 2 eras, pretty much, the Harp era and then the Elliker era.
Yeah.
So what are like in your point of view, what are like the pros and cons, just coming from a journalistic point of view, just from seeing what was going on through it, just both those mayors and just how they were just progressing within the city?
Yeah. There's so much, like we need 4 hours to unpack that, but
that's true.
I mean,
we only got so little time. That's right.
I moved here right before Tony Harp was elected, and I was so proud to, and it was kind of right around the time I started reporting, and one of my first assignments, I was really proud. Like, I didn't know a lot about New Haven before I moved here. I moved here for a job. I had like a week's notice before I got here, so I did not do my civic research. And so I think it was actually the Independent where I learned that Tony Harp was going to be the first Black woman mayor.
Yeah, it was history. Yes.
And I was like, this is like, I am here for a historic moment. And one of my first assignments, I think partly because Paul Bass doesn't like to dress up, was covering her inauguration, because I just started writing for the Indy, and he was like, you look like you like to dress up. Would you like to go cover the? And the answer is, I do like to dress up. So he was correct. And shout out to Travis Carbonella, who maybe has been on the show.
Yes.
Is a local filmmaker, and Travis saved my my arse that day, because I was very new to New Haven. So of course I knew who Tony was, but I did not know who other people were. And Travis walked me over to people and would say, this is Howard Cahill. He owns a funeral home in New Haven. You want to ask him for a comment. This is Mike Morand. He used to be an alder. He works with the Office of New Haven Affairs. This is, and he just totally, I didn't know who Dan Malloy was, who was governor at the time. It was bad.
Yeah.
But in my defense, I had not lived here for a very long time.
No, this is true.
Yeah. And I was mostly reporting on the arts. I think what I really miss about Mayor Harp is that she could speak like when she spoke extemporaneously. So often her press people, and this is very normal for mayors, would write prepared remarks for her, and they were like watching paint dry on the wall. But when she spoke off the cuff extemporaneously, it was always extremely moving. And I remember watching her speak right after Trump had been elected. There was a march for refugees that went from Wilbercross High School, which is close to the offices for IRIS, which is the Refugee Resettlement Agency in New Haven, all the way downtown. And she got up, and it was amazing. Like, there were over 5,000 people, including a lot of new refugee families who were there. And she got up on the fountain by the green.
Yes.
I think probably wearing heels. And she just began to speak extemporaneously. And she said, it is amazing to me that people would come to this country in this day and age, because my ancestors did not come here willingly. And it was this like, it was an incredible moment. She was speaking to thousands of people. And she could do that and hold a space in a genuine way, in a way that I have seen very few leaders do. She also, I remember listening to her speak in a church about a classmate who had died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound when she was a child in Utah, and he was playing with a firearm. And she like that. And I think also her advocacy, like, she was really an advocate for people. She also loved the library. I think right now we have a library that is severely underfunded. And I would venture to say would not be that hard to make 1% of the city's general fund allocated for the New Haven Free Public Library and its 5 branches. But we have an administration that doesn't want to do that. And so I think, yeah, I mean, I think as a reporter, during the current administration, Justin is often, Mayor Elliker is often like very, very forward. He shows up at stuff, which I really respect. Mayor Harp also showed up at stuff. Yeah, do you have a more pointed question?
Yes.
I wish we had like an hour to unpack this.
I understand it was a lot coming from what I just asked you, but as a broadcaster, I only got like a half a minute with you, unfortunately.
That's okay.
Maybe we need to get you back on because we have so much to cover.
Definitely.
But this is the time just for you with these a little amount of seconds. Please plug the social media if anybody wants to reach out to you about anything. Please plug the Art Council and please plug your show because you have a show on this station.
Oh, yeah.
So this time is yours. Go right ahead.
I do. Okay. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, my personal is at LSG890. That's because I'm not a cool person. My professional is at New Haven Arts. That's the Arts Councils. It's where you can find out all the cool stuff, including jobs in the arts and stories to the arts paper. If you want to read the arts paper, which you should, go to newhavenarts.org. You should also read the New Haven Independent, newhavenindependent.org. And my show is on WNHH. So this station on Fridays, it's called Arts Respond at 1 p.m. And then really quickly, just going back to the mayoral thing, Harry, please don't kill me. So I will say the best hire, I think, in the Elliker administration has been the city's director of cultural affairs, Adrienne Jefferson.
Agreed.
She has transformed what arts looks like in this city. So shout out to Adrienne. She has been an incredible presence. And I think what we are doing around cultural equity in the arts really preceded the city's cultural equity plan. So shout out Adrienne. And that I give that to Elliker.
And shout out to you, Lucy, for being with us on Behind the Brand. Myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime, Long Island Rays, Elm City made EZ Bluez is in the building. Happy New Year, everybody. We're back on WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven. Appreciate you, Lucy. Love you. Thank you so much.
Wondering what to write about, trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist, am I worth anything or just a discount? I don't know. Spending time all alone, sending my songs to the phone, dreaming of a better home, while focused on trying to hone this craft, witchcraft. I hope the Bluez let this last.